Hi, and welcome to Noble Character Crafts. My name is Amy, and I'm coming to you from eastern Nebraska, where I live with my husband and our 5 children. Today is Friday, July 5th, 2024. A huge welcome to any new or returning viewers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you really enjoy this episode. This is a channel all about my crafty life, and today I have knitting and crocheting to share with you all. I will have links to the places that you can find me in the description box below, as well as the show notes for this episode. I have a few finished objects to share with you all today, the first of which I am wearing. I was able to finish the Rota Sleeveless top, which is a beautiful design by Irene Lynn, and I am so happy with how it turned out. This is knit in worsted weight yarn. I used gifted yarn that I received from a viewer of this channel, and it was I Love This Cotton in the apple green colorway. I did not think that I was getting gauge. I'm a loose knitter in general, and so I went down originally without even doing a gauge swatch to a US 5 3.75 millimeter needle. The original pattern calls for you to use a 6 4 millimeter needle, and I started making the size 2 according to my measurements. That would have been the size that would have fit me best, but I cast on and realized very quickly that it was turning out too wide. And so I decided to rip that out and start over again with the size 1 instructions instead. And I still never took a gauge swatch until I was all done and blocked it. And I measured my gauge. Well, in the pattern, it gives you an option to measure the gauge using stockinette stitch, which there's no stockinette stitch in this pattern, or measuring the 2x2 ribbing. So I measured my 2x2 ribbing and my gauge matched the pattern. So that doesn't quite make sense to me, because I guess I did not measure the actual, dimensions of this garment according to what the schematics say. I could do that and see how that compares, but according to my gauge measurements, my gauge matched. Yet I think this turned out bigger than a normal size 1 would. I would hope so, because this is meant to be worn with maybe more positive ease than I'm wearing it. But I've said this before, but I'm not a small woman at all. I'm a very large woman. I'm 5'10", and I'm a large woman. I mean, I'm as large as the average man, I think. So, as far as my height. And so anyway, I would hope that this isn't turning out to be the smallest that the pattern offers, because then the majority of women are much smaller than me, and they'd be swimming in the smallest size if they were smaller than me. And there's a lot of women that are smaller than me. So I don't know. I don't quite get that. That's not the first time that I've had this experience where I'm like, I'm getting a pretty small size here, but I'm not the smallest woman in the world. I mean, I'm just naturally a large person. My dad was 6'6", and I just, have larger genetics, I guess. I don't know. I'm just a big person for a woman. Anyway, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. I was able to make this using just 3 skeins of yarn. I have just a small little ball left of the yarn, which I think is great. I'm so happy with that. I started this garment on May 30th and finished it on July 1st. And so I was really happy that I was able to make it with, in basically a month. I loved the actual pattern. So it's knit from the top down. You start with the back piece, and then you attach the side pieces, and then you join in, then you do neck shaping here, and then you finally join under the arms in the round and start working in the round. But I loved the pattern. It was really, really a lot of fun to work. I thought it wasn't very difficult. It is lace work, but it was easy, really, very simple lace work. Then you go back in the end and do all the ribbing. And yeah, I was just really happy with how it turned out. I will stand up in a little bit to show you it in its entirety. But let's see, I followed the pattern. I don't think I made any major modifications except for my needle size, but like I said, I meant gauge, so that doesn't really matter. Let's see, I did I think, recommended length There is an option to do a cropped length, and I did not do that. I followed the normal instructions, I guess. And then also there's instructions that say you can continue to knit it longer if you want, but I did not do that. So again, I'll stand up in a little bit so you can see better, but let's see. Oh, there was one modification I made to the underarm. And it's probably a really minor detail, but when I was knitting the arm ribbing, I just noticed that the side ribbing was not matching up with the underarm ribbing. It was like offset. It's 2x2 ribbing on the underarm here and 2x2 ribbing. I feel a little weird showing my underarm here, but anyway, 2x2 ribbing on the underarm as well. And I wanted that to match up. So I kind of did some finagling with adjusting the stitches. So the original pattern calls for you to pick up a certain number of stitches in the underarm, but that does not match up with the 2x2 ribbing. So instead I picked up a few more stitches in the underarm so that I could match that 2x2 ribbing along the side seam. And then I just reduced the number of stitches that I picked up for the rest of the armhole so that it would match what the recommended number of stitches was called for the arm ribbing. I hope that makes sense. Let's see, I guess I did knit the bottom hem a little bit longer. My bottom hem equals 3¼ inches in length. And I think the original was like 2½ or something like that, but I just did it until I thought it looked good, which is a rarity for me. Usually I make my tops shorter than what's recommended, but in this case I made it just a little bit longer. I think that's all that I have for my notes. Not a whole lot. Oh, I did use US 3.25 millimeters for all of the ribbing. And again, that was just one needle size down from the recommended. All right, I'll stand up so you can see a little bit better. I always say I'm going to stand up, but then I think it works better for me to actually kneel instead of stand, so that I can still talk to you. Okay, so here you can see the entirety of it. I'm wearing it over a black dress today, which works really well. And I just love the detail of this pattern. I think it is so gorgeous. And here you can see the bottom ribbing is nice and long, and the back ribbing is the same. Those match. The side cabling is very, very pretty, I think. Then it has this split hem. I don't know if I'm really a fan of a split hem because I feel like it makes it look like it doesn't really fit very well because it like flares out. But I don't know. I guess I'm just being a little picky about that because, I mean, I think it's cute, but it just seems a little funny. I just feel like it should be closed, but I'm just being funny about that, I guess. Anyway, yeah, I think I like it a lot. I just think the detail of this pattern is so beautiful. I'm so happy with how it worked out. And I love the color on this garment. I think it's really a fun, bright green color that I love. So I'm super happy with it. Just turn around so you can see the back. It's pretty much like the front, except it goes up higher. So that's it. I'm so happy with it. I am happy to have another summer garment in my wardrobe, but I think this will be my last summer garment for this year. I'm excited to start working on, I have 2 more garments on my Make 9 list that I would like to make, 2 cardigans. So I'm hoping to cast on one of those cardigans soon. And I think I'll start the one that is a sport weight. So that will take a little bit longer, and I'm hoping that by the time I finish it then it'll probably be cool enough to wear it, or close to the right timing for me to be able to wear it once I finish it, I think. All right, I was also able to finish this pair of socks that I was knitting for my husband's grandmother. She is going to be 95 in December, and she has tried some of my hand knit socks and has really liked them, so I wanted to make her a pair. And I'm really happy with how these turned out. I knit these from the cuff down. I cast on 60 stitches using US 0.2 millimeter needles. And I did 2x1 ribbing for 20 rounds. and then knit plain stockinette for, I don't remember how many rounds. I think I noted it though. 57 rounds, kind of a random number. I cast these on May 30th as well. That's funny. I cast both of these projects on the same day. Oh no, I'm sorry, I misread that. I cast these on May 20th and I finished them on June 23rd. The yarn that I made these in was also gifted to me. So many of the projects that I am working on and have to share with you all are made with yarn that was gifted to me by viewers of this channel. So I just feel so incredibly blessed to be able to use all of this wonderfully gifted yarn. Anyway, this yarn is so beautiful. I really loved working with it. It is King Cole Zigzag yarn in the Frappuccino colorway, and it is 75% superwash wool and 25% nylon, which reminds me that I don't think I mentioned that well, maybe it's obvious. The title is I Love This Cotton, but I never mentioned that this is worsted weight 100% cotton. I don't think I said that, but maybe you already figured that out. Anyway, I just did plain stockinette on these, as you can plainly see, and then for the heel, I did a slip stitch heel flap using another gifted yarn. This was dyed by Autumn and Indigo. It was in a mini set that was gifted to me by a viewer of this channel. And I just did a rounded toe. I've mentioned before that when I make plain socks, when I'm not following a specific pattern, I'm basically following the instructions from Kay Litton's patterns, the Crazy Sock Ladies patterns, because those are the patterns that I've knit the most of, and so I just follow her instructions for heels and toes. So that's my go-to instructions for socks. Let's see, is there anything else on these? I don't think so. The heel yarn was also 75% superwash merino wool, 25% nylon, and they're both fingering weight. So yeah, I'm excited to gift these to Grandma Gloria. I was working on them over at her house, and so I shared with her that they were for her. So I'm not gonna wait to gift these to her. When you're 94 years old, you don't have to wait for a gift. So I'm just gonna gift these to her now. Obviously, well, maybe it's not obvious, but we're in the height of summer here, so she's probably not gonna need them right now, but I'm still just gonna gift them to her so that she can have them as soon as possible. And then I also have one more little finished object. I was able to make another dishcloth. So I worked on a few of these. I shared them a few episodes ago. This, I followed the Rainbow Ripple Baby Blanket pattern, which is a free pattern by Celeste Young. But I have worked another one of these into a dishcloth. And I am just loving working with these dishcloths so much. The ones I've already made, I've loved working with them. And I was going through my stash and I came across this yarn, which was also gifted to me by a viewer of this channel. And this is, now the other dishcloths that I've made using this pattern, I used fingering weight yarn. And this yarn is a little bit thicker than that. I'm not exactly sure of the, I'm not exactly sure of what the weight is. My guess is it's a sport weight, maybe even DK, but I'm not 100% sure. I haven't looked it up, but I do have the label, I think. Oh no, it's over there on my tray. Just a second. Okay, so it is Georges Picard Qualité 234, and let's see, it's 50 grams and 110 meters. So I'm not really sure. Maybe that'd be more DK weight. I'm not really sure. It doesn't seem very thick, really. Here it is, and it seems pretty thin to me. It's a little bit thicker than fingering weight, but it's really not that thick. I would definitely not call it worsted weight, but maybe DK. Anyway, the makeup of this yarn is 65% rayon viscose, same thing I guess, 18% cotton and 17% acrylic. Now the other yarn that I used for these dishcloths was 75% Pima cotton, 25% acrylic. And that makeup of yarn has worked really well. I thought that maybe the acrylic makeup and the yarn would be kind of odd to work with for a dishcloth, but it's worked up really well. Now this one, I'm questioning how it will work as a dishcloth, but I think it'll be okay. I'm not sure. Maybe you saw when I held up the yarn that it has kind of a bumpy texture to it. I'm not sure what you would call that. Almost like a boucle, I guess, but I don't know. I don't know how I would describe that yarn, but it's not a smooth yarn, it's bumpy. But I think that will be kind of good for a dishcloth because it almost has like a scrubby feel to it. So I think it'll work out okay. I used the same hook size that I did for the other dishcloths that I made, even though this yarn was thicker. I used a 3.5 millimeter hook. And I again completed 12 rounds of the pattern for this dishcloth, which is the same as I did for the other dishcloths. However, this one turned out larger, which I'm glad of, because when I washed my first set of dishcloths, they've shrunk a little bit, and I'd like them just to be a tad bit bigger. So this one is bigger, and we'll see how it shrinks up with only a little bit of cotton in there. Only 18% cotton. Maybe they won't shrink up as much, but anyway, I think they're so beautiful, and I'm hoping that this will work up well. It used almost the entirety of that 50-gram ball of yarn. So pretty. I was able to make this in just one day, and it measures the diameter is 12 inches. And then I have started a second one because I had 2 balls of that yarn that was sent to me. So I'm in the middle of another one, or really just starting another one. Well, I've done a few rows or rounds. This is a free pattern, by the way, if you're not familiar with it, and I've used it lots of times for actually making baby blankets, but I just thought of when I had made another baby blanket, I thought, boy, that middle pattern would be so pretty as even like a pot holder or something like that. And I thought, I'm just going to try to see how it works for a dishcloth. And anyway, I just love it. So here's my work in progress. Let's see how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, I'm already on my 7th round. I'm almost done with it. So I only have 5 more rounds to go, and this one will be done as well. And here's the hook I'm using. So that's really fun and easy to work up. I'm just holding it in a bag that I received from a tea order. I think I got a package of tea from Amazon, and this came in the order. It's a really nice, sturdy canvas bag. So that works well for that. Oh, I want to put that yarn label in there so I don't lose that. Okay, on to my other works in progress. Let's see here. The next one you have seen lots and lots of times, but I still want to keep showing it off because I am making progress on it. So here is, it's being held in a bag that I sewed myself. And this is my triangle garter wrap shawl that I've been working on since the end of last year. And as I mentioned last time I recorded, I've just been adding 2 rows to this every day. This is the first project I pick up in the morning. I add 2 rows to it, and then I put it down. I've gotten to the point, I'm almost to the point where I think I can start doing 3 rows because I work on it for about 20 minutes every day. And right now I'm able to get my 2 rows done in less than 20 minutes. So I think I can start adding a 3rd row in, and then I'll make even more progress. But there is a progress keeper marking where I was last time, so I've made a few more inches of progress. And I'm sorry if I am repeating myself for those of you that have watched for a long time, but I just want to go over in case there's anybody new watching. I am making, so this is a free pattern by Purl Soho, but I'm making modifications to this pattern by making it using lace weight yarn. I'm using silk mohair lace weight yarn in 4 different colors. And I am also modifying it because once I got to the triangle shape, once I knit through half of my yarn, I started decreasing my stitches. And so my final product is going to be a square instead of just a triangle. I'm using US, I don't remember, 3.75 millimeter needles. All of the needles that I use are Chow by the way. And here you can see the beginning tip of it. And I started using Knit Picks Aloft in the white colorway. And then the gray is called Plover. The bare yarn that I'm using right now is not Knit Picks, it's just a bare yarn that I used to dye on. And then the final color that I will end off my shawl is also Knit Picks Aloft in the Oat colorway. And this is 72% Super Kid mohair and 28% silk. So that's coming along great. I'm really still enjoying working on it. You know, that little chunk of time that I'm putting into it each day is, you know, seeming to make a dent in it, and so that's great. But it's just such a nice mindless project to work on when I first wake up and I don't have, you know, I'm not fully awake yet. Okay, my next work in progress I want to share with you is another shawl that I've been working on. This is being held in a beautiful bag that was made by Trisha of Joy in the Stitches. So cute. I made this little pull tab on there to go along with the colors in it. And I am knitting the Odyssey shawl, which is another free pattern by Locatelli. And I'm knitting this for a friend of mine. She purchased the yarn and then asked if I would knit her a shawl using it. The yarn is Yarn Bee Authentic Hand-Dyed Yarn in the Hibiscus Palm colorway, which is fingering weight 100% superwash merino wool. I'm holding it double because this pattern calls for DK weight yarn. And I've made a bit of progress on this. So it starts off with a large garter stitch section, and then I don't have this on a big enough cable. I'm all out of cables right now. I'm making too many different projects. I do have a larger cable on one of the knitted blankets that I'm working on, and I could maybe switch out cables from that project. I'm not sure, but I haven't done that yet. So anyway, I can't stretch this out completely, but I have done the first lace section, which is so pretty. I think that's really cool. And yeah, this yarn is obviously very variegated, but I think it's looking really neat still. Now the original pattern calls for you to change colors using 3 different colors in the yarn in the project, but I'm just gonna hold this yarn through the entirety of the shawl. And so now I'm into another garter stitch section, and it's going really well. I'm using the recommended needle size, which is US 8 5mm, I believe. Yes, that's right. Here's the 2 cakes of yarn that I'm using. It's very, you know, variegated, and I've tried to hold the yarn so that it doesn't match up exactly. It goes gold, burgundy, teal, burgundy, gold, burgundy, teal, burgundy. And I've tried to make the 2 colors offset, but sometimes they line up. So I can't keep them as variegated as I had wanted to. So there's still some sections where the colors kind of pool, but I'm just accepting it now. I was trying to manage the yarn a little bit to make sure that it was really, you know, not going to pool, but I've given up on that, and I'm just going to knit it and let the yarn do its own thing. So anyway, that is a really fun project as well, and there's a lot of garter stitch in it, so it's a nice mindless project for the majority of the time as well. Okay, my next work in progress I want to share with you is the Scrappy Hexi flower blanket that I am crocheting, and I've made a few more motifs, 3 more motifs for that blanket. So I just want to share those with you. Oh, I love them so much. Makes me so happy to see them all done. I am using my own tutorial for this pattern, which I will link down below. But in the tutorial that I have on my channel, I change my colors in the hexagon 3 times. So I use 3 different colors in each hexagon. And for this project, I am making each of my hexagons in only one color. And yeah, I just love how these are turning out. And then I will be bordering each of these motifs with white hexagons and then piecing them all together into a blanket. Here's the second one I made, which reminds me of the colors in the orchid that I've had in my background for several weeks. The orchid flowers last forever, but they finally died. And so I don't have that in my background anymore. But anyway, the color here is it matches the orchid flowers. So I liked how that looked. And the third one I've just finished is this one, which has a very autumnal feel to it. And I'm a little bit unsure about this one because, you know, the other colors are so springy / summery. I guess this one has kind of fallish tones to it as well, but they're brighter. And then this one's, I do have one other one that is more brown tones, but I think it'll be okay. I want like just a total random mixture of colors so that it looks very, you know, in a wildflower garden, you know, there's just a ton of different colors. And so I think it'll be okay. But just when I finished this one, I was like, oh, I don't know. Is that going to look okay with my bright colors? I hope so. But anyway, I just love, I'm still continuing to love working on these so much. I'm using I don't remember now, 2.75, I think, is my hook size. Where are my notes? That's funny. I started this further back than I remember. Here it is. Yes, a C 2.75 millimeter hook is what I'm using for this project. So I'm loving them so much. I still am just so excited to start piecing them together, but I want to finish all of my motifs first. So I miscounted last time, but I am pretty sure I now have 11 motifs done. So that's very exciting. I think they're so pretty. I crochet over all of my ends as I go along, and I show that in the tutorial, but it just makes it so nice because then here's the back and I don't have any ends to worry about except the ones on the outside, which I will then crochet over as I piece them together. So that works out great. Okay. Now a couple of episodes ago, I shared with you that I had started a new baby blanket, and it is unraveling. It was this one here, and well, let me just tell you what this is. This came from a Mosaic crochet book that I checked out from my local library. And it's called Floating Points Throw by Esme Crick. But when I was sharing it on 2 episodes ago, when I was editing my video, I was like, oh, I don't like that. I didn't really even notice that I didn't like it until I saw it on the video. And I don't know, it just reminded me of like chicken pox, or I don't know, seeing these red circles. I was just like, I don't like that. I don't think that looks pretty at all. So I lost motivation in working on this after that video, and I decided to use this yarn for something else. So I'm going to be ripping this out, and I've started a new baby blanket instead. Actually, it's going to become more of a toddler-sized blanket. So I found the pattern for this in this book, which is A Year of Afghans. It's a Leisure Arts publication from 2000. Yes, from the year 2000. And in here is this pattern for Country Hearts, it's called. Isn't that so pretty? I just love how this looks. Now my blanket that I'm making is a bit different because I'm making some changes as I normally do, but I really do love this original pattern. The colors in this are so beautiful, but I'm working with the colors I already showed you, which I like too, but this really is just so pretty. Anyway, I'm really enjoying this pattern a lot. The original, the heart motif is a little bit tricky to get used to, but now I am getting used to it, so that's great. So here is what I've made so far. And I'm really happy with it. Now some of the hearts need to kind of be pressed down a little bit to look pristine. I think it's so pretty. I'm really, really happy with how it's looking. So I'm using both yarns that I'm using were also gifted to me by viewers of this channel. This is Knit Picks Brava worsted weight in the Cherry Speckle colorway. It's worsted weight, 100% premium acrylic. And then the other color I'm using, I'm pretty sure it's also worsted weight acrylic yarn. And the colors just go so well together, so it's perfect. Let's see, I'm making quite a few modifications to this. So as you can see, I'm not changing my colors as much as they are in the original pattern. They had, changed their colors in their squares quite often. I am, just using these two colors. I also am changing the placement of the hearts. So all of the hearts in the original blanket are facing the same way, but I'm alternating mine every other row. I'm having them flip-flop. And then I'm also making a modification to the actual squares. So in the original pattern, they do their granny squares so that there's a chain 1 in between each granny cluster. And I never do that in my granny squares. I just do 3 double crochets, US terms, in each space. So I do not do a chain 1 in between my clusters. And then I like that better because then you get more of a closed look. You don't have as much open gaps in the project. In the heart squares, I'm following the instructions for the actual heart to a T, but then once I start the main color for the squares, then I am reducing my chain stitches by 1 for everything. So in the first round, there's a lot of chain stitches, and I am taking out, so if it calls for example, right here at the top of the heart, there's supposed to be a chain 6 gap. I'm just doing a chain 5. Down at the bottom, there's supposed to be a chain 2, and I'm only doing a chain 1. And then there's several chain 1 spaces around the heart as you're joining the main color, and I'm taking most of those out. So whenever it says to chain 1, I'm reducing that by 1. Sometimes that means I'm not doing a chain at all, and sometimes it means I just reduce my chain by 1. Anyway, and then for the rest of the square, I'm also not including those chain stitches. And then on the corners, for example, it calls to chain 3, and I only chain 2. I'm using an H5mm hook for this project, which is also a difference. They called for a J, I think. It doesn't matter, maybe an I. I think an I 5.5mm. And again, I just went down because I wanted a bit of a tighter gauge. So I'm going to make this into a toddler size blanket. I think I have enough yarn, according to my calculations, to do 5 squares across as I've done here, and then 7 tall. And then I'll still have enough of, especially the contrast color, this bright red color, to do a border with that. And I'm planning on gifting this to a foster child that my sister-in-law is caring for. She just started caring for 2 foster children, a girl who's 3, which I'm planning on giving this to her, and then a boy who is 4, and so I have plans to make a blanket for him as well. So I didn't think about that when I first started this blanket, but as I was working on it, then I was talking to my kids about who this would go to, and we thought that maybe she would really like it. So I think I have enough yarn to make it a pretty good size. It won't be as big as a twin size bed, but it will be bigger than a normal size baby blanket. So it'll kind of be the perfect size for a 3-year-old, I think. So I'm excited about that. I've just been working up 2 squares each day and adding them into the blanket. So that's been great. I kind of have a few projects lately where I've been methodical about working on a little bit of a little chunk of them each day. Does that make sense? Working on them little by little each day. Kind of making it a plan in my day to work on each project a little bit each day. Okay, I have two more new works in progress to share with you. The first is another pair of socks that I am holding in this cute little sock bag that I received in a swap several years ago. And I'm again making some socks using gifted yarn, which is so great. I didn't mention that the socks that I just finished for Grandma Gloria were gifted, that yarn was gifted to me by Nikki. I'm dropping this yarn. And this yarn was also gifted to me by Nikki. And it's also King Cole yarn. It's called King Cole Summer 4-ply, and the colorway is called Neptune. And it's perfect yarn to work on in the summertime because it's 55% bamboo, 37% cotton, and 8% PBT, which is a form of polyamide. I am making these for my mother-in-law. I cast on 60 stitches using US 0 2mm needles again, and I did the 2x1 ribbing for about a little more than 20 rounds. I kind of just went until the yarn color was changing. I love how these are working up. The color stripes are so fun. I like how the color changes and then you get these striped sections and then the color goes solid and then it fades into the next color and goes solid. I just love the way this is working up. It's so much fun. So for the leg, I did a little less than 70 rounds. Again, I was kind of letting the yarn determine when to switch to the heel. Again, I did a slip stitch heel flap for the heels, and I actually pulled yarn from the inside of the cake for the heels so that the color striping wouldn't get messed up on the actual leg of the sock. And that worked out really well. It was a bit tangly, but I worked through it. And I like how the heels worked up then. They're so fun. This yarn it feels so nice to the touch. It's super soft but cool, and I really like it. I have worked with this, I'm pretty sure it was the exact same makeup of yarn. It was from King Cole, I know, and I know it had that PBT in it. Anyway, I made a pair of socks that were Christmas colors in the same type of yarn, and I really like them. I've kept them for myself. So anyway, I am done with the gusset decreases, so I'm just into the plain stockinette again for the foot. And yeah, I'm loving these so much. They're so much fun. I finally got into a color repeat, I think. I've gone through a whole color repeat. Look how long that is though. But I think I'm into the solid part of this color again, and then it will repeat that color transition, that color repeat. Anyway, so pretty. I love them. My last work in progress is one that I've really been excited about the last couple of days. I was going through my stash and I have quite a bit of bulky weight yarn in my stash and I didn't really know what to do with it. So I just went onto Ravelry and I was searching for projects that I could make using bulky weight yarn because I wanted to use it up. And I came across this designer who is incredible. I will link to her pattern page because she is so incredibly talented. The patterns that she has on her page are amazing. So the designer is Pippa Patterns, and the pattern that I came across that I am making is called Hen and Chicks Cushion, and I'll put a picture of it here so you can see how amazing it is. My work in progress won't do it justice yet because it needs to be pieced together, but I just thought that this cushion was so beautiful and super cool, and I love the looks of it. And a lot of the yarn that I had, well, I had 3 skeins of this color, which was actually accidentally sent to me by Knit Picks, but they said I could keep it after I told them that I received this package that I never ordered. Anyway, it's Brava bulky weight in the pea pod colorway. It is 100% premium acrylic, and I had 3 skeins of this green color, so I thought that would work well for the cushion, but I knew it wasn't going to be enough. So I also have quite a few skeins, more than enough skeins of this Premier Bloom Chunky self-striping floral print yarn in the Blossoms, I think. The color is called Orchid, but it's also bulky weight, 100% acrylic yarn, and it's supposed to stripe like that if you do it in stockinette stitch, I guess. And then I'm also using some of the yarn that I shared that Ellen had sent to me. And this is Premier Yarns Deborah Norville Collection Serenity Chunky Weight, but bulky and chunky are used interchangeably. This is in the Red Bayou colorway, and again, it's also 100% fine acrylic. So I'm using all 3 of these yarns to make my Hen and Chicks cushion. And I wanted to use up as much of that green color as I could. So I started with, the way that this pillow is worked up is you make all of the petals, but each of the petals is double-sided. So you need to make, for the outside round, you need to make a total of 16 petals. Then you sew 2 of them together and you eventually end up with 8 petals for the outside round. So I am making them, I've made my first 8 outside petals. I'm using the recommended hook, which is a G 4mm hook. And the way that I did it is I used the Red Bayou color for the first 2 rounds, and then I've used the pea pod for the last 3 rounds, so that you can kind of get the looks of, you know, I wanted the majority, the standout color to be that green color, but then I thought it would look okay to have the Red Bayou on the inside. And, you know, the color variation changes quite a bit, but I think it will look cool to have that. And then for the back side of these petals, I'm going to do them completely in the Red Bayou color. So these will be sewn together, and then the Red Bayou solid one will be on the bottom of the cushion, if that makes sense. So I think that will work well. Then for the rest of, I'm only using the Red Bayou in that last round. And then I may use it for, you have to actually make a round cushion that you sew everything to as well. So I may use the Red Bayou for the actual cushion as well. And then for the second to last round of petals, I did the same idea, but with the orchid colorway. So again, I did 2 rounds in the orchid and then the last 3 rounds in the pea pod. And again, for these, so there's 6 total of these, so you have to make 12 pieces. There's 6 total petals. So I've done all of those petals. The only ones I have left to do are I've done all of the green ones, all 8 of the green ones, and I've only done 1 of the solid Red Bayou. So I have 7 more of the solid Red Bayou big leaf petal things to make. Otherwise, I've got all the leaves made, so that's exciting. So for these, these will be the side that will be shown, the upper side, and then I've made solid leaves in the orchid color. And again, the variation really changes a lot in this yarn as well. But I think it's super fun. So then these will be stitched together in the same way, where this will be the back side and this will be the top. Also, I do have a bit more of the pea pod left over, and I'm hoping that that will be enough to stitch these together. We'll see. Then also at the very tip, you might have noticed in the picture, at the very tip of each petal, there's supposed to be a bit of pink added, and so I'm just going to use the orchid color for all of that as well. So then, let's see, the next row of petals are here. These are only 4 rounds, so I just did 2 and 2, so 2 rounds of the orchid, 2 rounds of the pea pod, and then there's only 3 of these total, so 6 pieces, but there will be 3 leaves, and the back sides are in the orchid. Then the next row is even smaller. And there's only 3 total of these, so 6 pieces again, but 3 total. And I did them in the same way, except this one, they only have 3 rounds, so 2 in the orchid and just 1 in the pea pod. And then the 2, well, let's see, the second to last, or the interior, there's 2 more interior pieces or sections. So the second, okay, the middle piece is this, and it's just solid, and it's not going to be double-sided. It's just a solid, it's just one little piece. So that's the middle, and then the next second round are these little pieces. And I just did these solid in the orchid colorway, but they're still quite variegated, you know, because of the color changing. So there's all my pieces. Like I said, I only have a few more petals to make, and then I need to make the big cushion, and then I need to piece all of the pieces together and sew them all together. But I'm super, super excited about this project. I've been working on it pretty obsessively the last few days, and they are crocheted at a really tight gauge, so it's been, I can kind of feel it in my hand a little bit. So I need to pace myself because I don't want to injure myself, but they've just been so much fun to work on. I've really enjoyed them. When I first started making them, I really had to concentrate on the pattern. Well, I still need to follow the pattern and you know, I have to keep track of the pattern because it changes for every round. It's not memorizable. But they've gotten easier and easier, obviously, as I work them up, and I just really am enjoying them, and I'm getting excited that I'm seeing the finish line of them all coming together. So I'm very excited about this project and excited to see how it will look when I've pieced it all together. It's really fun to be able to work with the yarn that I have and make it work in this project. So yeah, I've been enjoying that a lot. So I think that is it for all of that, for that project. That's all I have to share on that project, and I think that's all that I have to share in general. So I did just want to mention that you may have noticed that for some reason I got messed up on my episode counting. So somehow I ended up getting my numbers off, and I repeated episode 187 in my numbering twice. So I had 2 episodes that were numbered 187, and then I got all off. And so on my last episode, I thought it was only 189, but it was actually 190. Anyway, I kind of sorted everything out, but my YouTube pictures don't match my Instagram pictures. Not that that really matters, but, oh, and then the opening video, the intro video, the numbers aren't matching always, so they got all mixed up. Anyway, it just made me think that maybe I'll get rid of the numbering of my episodes, and I'm just going to start putting the date that I record on the video instead. So if you notice that change, that's why. And sorry for the mix-up on my numbering. Nobody ever mentioned it, so probably no one ever noticed, but I just thought I would mention that in case you happen to notice that I make that change. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed watching this episode and seeing the things that I've been working on, and I hope that you are enjoying the things that you are working on as well. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.